Hello everyone, here are the answers to yesterday's worksheet. I'm going to go over each problem. I'll go ahead and pause the video just to check first before you look at how each problem is done. So just for the first three, you had to state restrictions. After that, when I tell you to assume no denominator 0, that simply means we do not have to state restrictions. So let's go ahead and take a look at these. All right, so the idea here, now that all these problems are mixed together, if we just see a single fraction, all we have to do is factor, and yes, in this case, state restrictions, and then cross out. So always look for a GCF first. There is a GCF in the numerator of x, and then what's left is x minus 5. There's also a GCF of 3x in our denominator. What's left? X minus 5. Since we're asked to state restrictions, we want to state them now. We do not state them after we cross out, or we're going to miss some important restrictions. This first x here next to the 3, that cannot equal 0. It's a monomial. If that's 0, we get 3 times 0, which is 0 times a negative 5 here, which is also going to just be 0. From our second factor here, the x minus 5, that x cannot equal 5. So there's our restrictions. Then we cross out. X minus 5 is our perfect match. They cross out. So do these x's. They're monomial x's. So really what we have in the numerator is a 1 over 3. 2 is another single fraction. All we have to do is factor. All right, if we look at the numerator, there is no GCF, so we're going to try two sets of parentheses. The only way to factor 2x squared is 2x and x. And then for 6, I'm going to try 2 and 3. I'm just going to try the 3 first and then the 2. I want to get a positive 1 in the middle. So on the outside, I'm going to have a 4x. On the inside, I'm going to have a 3x. 4x and 3x will get me to a 1x if my signs are different, so that worked. If it didn't, I would just switch the 2 and the 3 around. So to get a positive x in the middle, I need my 2 to be positive, because now on the outside, there's my 4x. And then I have a minus 3x. So that'll give me a positive 1x in the middle, and then negative 3 times 2 at the end is negative 6. Now in my denominator, there is a GCF. I want to first factor that out. What are we left with? An x squared minus 4. So I want to go further with this. So I just recopy my numerator. Still keep the 4 here, and then x squared minus 4 factors into an x minus 2 times x plus 2. Again, I want to state restrictions. So there's no x with that 4, so I don't have to worry about it. This first x cannot equal a positive 2. The second x cannot equal a negative 2. Now I can cross out the x plus 2's. That's it. So my final answer up top, we're left with 2x minus 3 over 4 times x minus 2. Number 3 is also a single fraction. There's nothing we could do in the numerator. So I'm going to leave that alone. I'm just going to keep it in parentheses. There is a GCF of 7x in the denominator, and then carefully, we're going to have a 1 minus a 2x. So now my restrictions, the 7x, that x right there cannot equal 0. Now the 1 minus 2x, I'm going to set that equal to 0. I'm going to add 2x to both sides. Then I'm going to divide by 2. So if x is 1/2, my denominator is also 0. So there's my other restriction, 0 and 1/2. All right, so now I'm going to cross out, but the 2x minus 1 and the 1 minus 2x, those are opposites. When I cross them out, I'm left with the negative 1. Nothing else crosses out, so I'm left with the negative 1 over 7x, or you could write it as negative out in front and then 1 over 7x. All right, for the rest of these, we do not have to state restrictions. All right, so for number 4, we're multiplying. We still follow the same process here. We want to factor and just cross out. So in my first numerator, that's a difference of squares. That's going to factor into a 3x minus 4 and then a 3x plus 4. There's no GCF in my first denominator, so I am going to make two sets of parentheses. Now chances are a 3x and a 4 is a good clue. So the only way to factor out a 3x squared, or to factor 3x squared, is 3x and x. And then I'm going to try a 4 and a 2. I'm going to try the 4 first here, and then the 2 over here. So this will give me 6x on the outside, 4x on the inside. That will get me to a 2 if I do a positive 6 minus 4. 5x plus 10, there's a GCF of 5. I'm left with x plus 2. And then in our denominator, GCF of 10, I'm left with an x minus 1. Again, I don't have to worry about restrictions here, but the x plus 2's will divide out, the 3x minus 4's will divide out, 5 with the 10, 5 will become a 1, 10 will become a 2. So now I am left with a 3x plus 4 up top, and then I have a 2 times the quantity x minus 1 in our denominator. All right, for number 5, again, we're multiplying, plenty to factor here. My first numerator is a sum of cubes. So when I go to factor this, this is a binomial times a trinomial. What's going to go first is the cube root of each term, so a y and a 3, same sign, which is plus. Then all I need is my binomial to help me get to my trinomial. First I multiply y times y, so y squared. Then it's the opposite sign, so a minus. In the middle, I multiply 3 times y. Last sign is always positive. Then I multiply 3 times 3, which is 9. GCF in my first denominator of 4y. What's left? A y plus 3. GCF in my second numerator of y squared. What's left? Y minus 2. And then notice, no, my denominator over here cannot factor, but it does match the trinomial from above. So I cannot factor that. All right, and now we can just cross out. So the trinomials match, the y plus 3's cross out, and then down here, this y is going to cross out with one y here, so I'm left with another y up there. So now my final answer is going to be a y times the quantity y minus 2 in my numerator, all over 4. Okay, number 6, we're dividing. So our very first step to take here is to multiply by the reciprocal. So I keep my first fraction the same. Multiply by the reciprocal here. All right, so my first numerator, I can factor out a 2. I'm left with a 5 minus 3a. Now my denominator, I'm not going to actually expand that to multiply, but what I am going to do is just write it out side by side. I have 2 factors now of 3a minus 5. Second numerator, there's no GCF. I'm going to factor into 2 binomials here. 3a squared factors into 3a times a. Now again, if you notice, I've got a 3a and a 5, so I'm going to try my 5 here and my 2 over here. So this will give me a 6a and a 5a, and I'll get a negative a if the 5 is positive and then the 6a is negative. And then there's a GCF. I could factor out 4a, and then I would be left with a 3a plus 5. All right, so what's going to cross out? You could see a 3a plus 5 here with a 3a plus 5 here. Now over here, they're opposites. I can only cross one out from the bottom. So here and here, this will give me a negative 1. I can cross the 2 out with the 4. The 4 will become a 2. So let's see what we got going across the top. I have a negative 1 times the quantity of a minus 2 all over 2a times the quantity 3a minus 5. Another division problem here with number 7. So I'm just going to go ahead and start by multiplying by the reciprocal here. And now we'll go through and factor. GCF of 6 in my first numerator, and minus 7 is left. First denominator can factor into n times n, and we'll use 7 and 3. To get a negative 4, I want a minus 7 plus 3. There's no GCF in my second numerator. Factor 2n squared into 2n and n. How about we use a 3 over here and a 1, because that'll give me a 6n plus 1n. Everything's positive. And then 4n plus 2, I could factor a 2 out, and we're left with 2n plus 1. So what's going to cross out? n minus 7's, n plus 3's, 2n plus 1's, and I'm left with 6 over 2, which is 3. Okay, number 8. Now we're getting to adding and subtracting. So this is where we need common denominators. This is the 5 steps we're going to follow. First step is to make 2 blank fractions. Determine the LCD. Well, they both have V's already, so I don't have to worry about that. 5 goes into 10, so my LCD is 10V. So what did I multiply 5V by to get 10V? 2. So I have to multiply 6 times 2, which is 12. And then I don't do anything with the 3. Now I make one fraction over the 10V. 12 minus 3 is 9. That's all we have to do for number 8. Okay, number 9. I'm going to go ahead and factor the first denominator, factor out a 2, and that's going to help. So when I go to make my two blank fractions, my LCD is going to be 2 times the quantity r plus 1. They both have an r plus 1 in common. So my first numerator doesn't change because it had the denominator had both the 2 times the r plus 1, so I leave that as 5r plus 3. But the 2r has to get multiplied. It already had the r plus 1. I need to multiply it by a 2, so I'm going to get a 4r. So making one big fraction now. Hopefully you can tell just by looking, since we're adding, 5r plus 4r is 9r plus 3. Technically, yes, we could factor a 3 out from the top, then we're left with a 3r plus 1, but nothing's going to come of this, so this is our final answer. All right, with number 10, I'm going to go and factor the first denominator. This will factor into x and x. We'll use 6 and 3. Need a plus 6 and a minus 3. So my LCD is going to be both x plus 6 and x minus 3. Now my first denominator had both of them, so I'm not going to change my numerator. But the 3 needs to get multiplied by the x minus 3 because it already had the x plus 6. So now I'm going to make one fraction and just go straight across, 7x plus 4. But I'm distributing a minus 3, so I'm going to get a minus 3x. Then negative 3 times negative 3 is a positive 9. So here we are going to get a 4x plus 13 over the LCD. And there's nothing we can do. There's no GCF of 4x and 13. All right, looking at number 11, if you notice the denominators here, they are opposite. So there's a little trick here. We're going to leave the first fraction the same. I'm going to pull a negative sign out. I'm going to factor a negative out from here. It's going to move up with a 6. That allows me to write my denominator as x minus 4. Again, because 4 minus x is the opposite of x minus 4, I pull out the negative from both, and that allows me to write my denominator as x minus 4 if I move the negative to the top. But now, this becomes 5 over x minus 4. These two negatives form a positive here, and then I get 6 over x minus 4. Now I have common denominators, and I get 11 over x minus 4. Oh, sorry, it was a 6x. Let me go back to that. All that changes is that we can't combine 5 plus 6x now. All right, and then our last one, we have a fraction plus a whole number. Well, we could just put that 6 over a 1. Now my LCD, 1 goes into anything, so my LCD is a plus 3. So my first numerator stays the same, but the 6 also needs to get multiplied by a plus 3. So now I'm going to make one fraction, and I have 8 minus a. I'm distributing a positive 6, so plus 6a plus 18. 6a minus a is 5a. 8 plus 18 is 26, all over a plus 3. All right, so please let me know if you still have questions over these 12 problems. You're going to do another review, mixed review today. I will post a solutions video hopefully by the end of the day today. If not, it'll definitely post over the weekend for you guys to check. So you will have an individual quiz Tuesday. You will be allowed to use your notes. I do want you joining Zoom to take this quiz. It's going to be around 7 problems, 20 points. And everything that I mentioned yesterday, you're going to have to simplify single rational expressions. You're going to have to multiply and divide them, and then add and subtract. So please make sure that you are correcting all the homeworks and making sure that you ask me questions. All right, guys, take care.